any questions and answers in graphs, please. This is the spatula for painting, oil painting. Spatula for oil painting. This is a brush for oil painting. A brush for oil painting. I've got that spatula for acrylic painting. I've got a foam brush for painting on acrylic. A foam brush for painting or for oil painting or acrylic. I've got another one. Spatula for oil painting or acrylics. I've got that different size paintbrushes. I've got that for oil painting. We do that. I've got another size paintbrush for oil painting. There. What else have I got? I've got that one. A fan brush for oil painting. I've got that brush for oil painting. What else have I got? I've got that spatula for acrylic painting. I've got that brush for oil painting. Oil painting again. Can you see how fine that is on the brush? I've got that brush for oil painting. Same as that brush for oil painting. I've got that brush for oil painting. I've got that for oil painting. That's a fine one. If you're doing oils, that's what I've got. I've got that stylus for making flowers, paper flowers. I've got that. I've got that for oil painting. This is a number 2. That's a number 20 oil painting brush. I've got that for oil painting. That's a number 10. Pardon me. I've got a water brush. I've got a paintbrush. Another paintbrush. I've got another spatula. That's a number 2. Fan brush there. That's a number 3 and 8. Oil painting. That's another paintbrush. That's another paintbrush. That's a 0. That's another paintbrush. That's 1.5. That's another paintbrush. That's another spatula, like Bob Ross's painting in oils. That's a paintbrush. I use that for acrylics and oils. That's another paintbrush. Another paintbrush there, that's number 4. Another paintbrush, number 3. Another paintbrush. Another paintbrush, that's number 4. A spatula, that's just a spatula. That's a paintbrush, 3 and 8. That's 1.5 paintbrush for oils. That's a paintbrush. That's a paintbrush. That's 3 and 8. That's a paintbrush. Number 4. That's a water brush. That's a paintbrush. Number 2. Another paintbrush. 1 and 8. Another paintbrush. 1 and 1.5. Scissors, fucking paper, and flowers. Paper flowers. What else have I got? I've got a spatula for glue. What questions want me to answer? What starts with T, ends with G? What starts with V, ends with Y? What starts with U? What starts with Y, ends with U? What starts with P, ends with L? What starts with M, ends with T? What starts with T, ends with E? What starts with L, ends with G? What starts with K, ends with S? What starts with B, ends with N? What starts with B, ends with G? What starts with U, ends with Y? What starts with U, ends with O? What starts with Y, ends with U? What starts with T, ends with G? What starts with T, ends with N? When I was in Lima, I met someone who was very much like you, and he was there again in Lycia, Marcos. Yes, but wasn't sure how to continue, brother. Yes, do you know where he is? I'm sorry, Artok. I'm afraid he is dead. Artok. Nobody slowly. as if this was what he had expected to hear, but his dark brown eyes filled grief, and he stood still and completely silent as Matt told him what had happened at the Akasenda. I'm sorry that he died because of us, Matt said, but I am glad that if he had to die, it was for you. Atok replied. He took a deep breath. Marcos was my younger brother. He said there was 2 years between us in our language. Marcos is a monkey, and he was the funny one, always in trouble. Atok is a fox. I was the one who was meant to be clever, and yet when we were playing once when I was 8 years old, I threw a stone at him and almost took out his eye. He had a scare just here. Artok raised a finger and drew a crescent moon next to his eyes. My father took his belt to me for that, but Marcos forgive me. He wanted to help you, Mator, because he believes in you. You are one of the five. He wanted not to be sad that he died. If he know you are safe now, and so it's also wrong for me to be sad. Too, there will be more deaths, many more. We must grow used to it. He turned his head and looked away into the distances, eyes focused on something far away. Now I walk alone for few minutes, he said. When I returned, we forgot what has been said, and we not spoke of it again. He walked away into the undergrowth. Pedro, I woke up and was clinging to him from the tent. Behind them, a trickle of white smoke from the bonfire rose uncertainly up into the morning sky. After breakfast, the two Indians put out the bonfire and packed up the tents they had already tied down. The helicopter had covered it with green tarpaulin, camouflaging it in case anyone had anyone happened to fly over. Ed Matt could see those people through of everything. All through, he still wasn't sure who they actually were. Artok had eaten with them whatever grief he might be feeling. He didn't let it show. We live now, he said, and signaling to one of the Indians, who come forward carrying two new pairs of trainers. You can't walk in those shoes. Matt gratefully removed the rubber tire sandals he had been wearing since Lima. Somehow he wasn't surprised that the new trainers fitted him perfectly. All of this had been planned. As he pulled them on, he noticed Pedro holding his own pair with a look of complete aware. It occurred to him that the pervin boy had probably never owned a new piece of clothing in his life. Right, when they were both ready, Atok reached into his poncho and produced a handful of dark green leaves and what looked like two small pebbles. You put this in. You put this in mouth. he explained, first in English, then for Pedro in Spanish. He wrapped a pebble in the leaves, forming a small bundle. The leaves are coca. He went on the stone we call libita, the two mix with saliva in mouth and give you strength. Matt did as he was told. The cocoa leaves tasted digesting and he couldn't imagine how they would work, but there didn't seem any point arguing. They set off. The two Indians went first. Matt followed with Pedro, tripping over several times as he got used to the new footwear. Just behind him, Atok was at the back. Their path was going to be up all the way. The jungle wasn't as impenetrable as it seemed somewhere. Someone a long time ago had cut a suitcase. The steps were almost invisible, even uneven and covered in lichia, but they were between the trees, twisting up the face of the hill. If you need rest, say Atok, said his Matt gritted his teeth. They had only covered a short distance and already he needed to rest. It wasn't the steepness of the slope. The e- air was even thinner than there it, than it had been in Cusco. If he walked too fast, his head would begin to thump, and he could feel the burning in his lungs. The secret was to measure out a careful pace, one step at a time, and not look up, as it only remains in how far they had to go. He turned the lib turned the libit over into his mouth. Now he understands why he just hoped it would actually work. The sun climbed higher, and suddenly it was hot. Matt could feel the sweat trickling down his back. Everything was wet once he reached out to steady himself against a tree, and his hand sank into it. As far it were a sponge, beads of moisture hung in the air, water dripping through his hair and ran down the side of his face. Pedro stopped and removed his poncho. Matt did the same. One of the Indians took them his expressions, making it clear that he would accept no argument. Matt didn't mind. He was using all his strength just to keep going. He must have already climbed 500 steps, and the staircase showed no sign of ending. Something bit him. Matt cried out and slapped his arms. A second time later he was bitten again, this time on the side of his neck. He almost wanted to cry or swear or scream. How much worse could this journey get? I caught up with him and handed him a cloth filled with some evil-smelling ornaments. Midges, he explained. We call them Plawakisi. It means insects who make the puma cry. I know how the puma feels, Matt growled. He scooped up some of the ornament and rubbed it into his skin, where it mixed instantly with his sweat. Matt felt it trickle down his body. His clothes were sticking to him like a second skin. Another midge bit him on the ankle. Matt closed his eyes for a moment, then set off again. They stopped twice for water. The Indians guided and plastic bottles in their backpacks. Matt forced himself to drink only a little, aware that all 5 of them had to share the same supply. The sun was high above them. Now he began to wonder if there was something wrong with his burden. The forest seemed hazy and out of focus when he realized that in the heat all the moisture was turning to steam. Soon he was completely wrapped in a dense white fog, barely able to see the man in front of him. "Stay close," Atok called out, his voice come from nowhere. He could have been on another planet. Not far now, they emerged from the cloud forest. Suddenly, an unexpected moment, Matt was frightened his way through the undergrowth. The next, he had emerged on the edge of a huge canyon. The sky was clear, a vast mountain range stretched out in front of him. Many other peaks covered in white snow, some of them seemed to be touching the edge of the space. Matt was close to exhaustion. He was soaking wet and he had a vicious headache. But even so, he felt a sense of liberation. Looking down, he saw that it was raining in the canyon, but the rain was below him. He had climbed above cloud level. "You see," Artok pointed to one of the mountains. From where they were standing, it looked a little like human and his Mandango, he explained to the sleeping god. Pedro had caught up with Matt. He stood panting on the edge of the abyss. He rasped out a few words in Spanish. Atok smiled for the first time since Matt had spoken. "Early," he said, "feels terrible." He translated for Matt. "But you look worse." "Where now?" Matt gasped. He couldn't believe they had climbed all this way up, just to go down again. It is not far, Atok, but take care. It is very far if you fall." Atok was exhausted. A single well-defined path led down the side of a canyon. Somehow Matt knew that it must have been cut into the rock face by hand. There was something completely unnatural about it. The path was flat, and the surface was almost as polished as the streets of Cusco. The the one thing it was fought through was wide in places. There was barely a meter between the wall and the hideous drop over the side. If Matt had taken one false step, he would have fallen and fallen. He saw a herd of sheep, of lemurs, gazing in the pampas as at the very bottom of the To canyon to him. They were like ants. There were no trees here to protect them from the sun, and Matt could feel it burning his face and arms. He was nothing in this humanist landscape. He could be soaked by the rain or fried by the sun. In his entry life, he had never felt so insignificant. They walked for more than an hour, describing all the time. Matt could feel the pressure changing in his ears. How long had he been since breakfast? He had No idea, but he knew that he couldn't go on much longer. His lungs were aching and his feet in the new trainers were getting blisters. They turned a corner and Matt saw that the path had brought them to a platform of solid rock with steps leading down on the other side. He took a deep breath. It seemed that their journey was over. They had arrived, and they built incredible on the edge of the canyon was a miniature city. It was a modern city. Parts of it reminded Matt of Cusco, and he guessed that it had been built by the same people, maybe around the same time. First terrace had been cut into the rock. There were the fountains, and there must have been 50 or 60 of them jutting out of a mountainside like giant shells. Some of the terrace had been planted with crops, some were dotted with grazing sheep and lemurs. The city itself consisted of temples, palaces, houses and stone rooms, all built of blocks of stone that must have been carried out some time through the cold forest. And over the mountains a great rectangle of grass ran through the centre of a meeting place, a sports ground, the focus of everyday life. Matt knew instantly that there would be no electricity here, no cars, nothing from the modern age, and yet he wasn't looking at a ruin. The city was alive. There were people everywhere they lived. They lived here. This was their home. What is this place? He whispered. Velibamba, it was Pedro who had replied. Atok nodded slowly. The lost city of the Incas, many great men searched for it for hundreds of years. They searched, but none have found it. Vicabalica couldn't find it. Can't be reached. Why not? It seemed easy enough to Matt after all day. Had reached it without too much difficulty. The path it brought them down the side of a canyon, most be clearly invisible. Anyone could follow it. Here, the path he began. Otok reached, shook his head. There is no path, he said. No, what I'm trying to say is that took a couple of steps back and looked around the corner. Impossible. The path wasn't there. The canyon wall was a shiver vertically dropped with no way up or down. The path the path that they had just taken, which they had walked down for more than an hour, had disappeared. Do not ask questions, Atok said. You have friends who wait for you. The Indians rest a head on his shoulders, and together the two of them walked around the corner. Pedro, the other men, had already gone on ahead. Matt saw them walk through a stone archway, and at the same time a man appeared climbing up the steps towards them. He was in a hurry, and he was European. Then the man drew closer and Matt felt a huge surge of pleasure and relief. He shouted out and ran forward. The two of them embraced. It was really cold. So click on my end screen, watch my full video from start to finish. Thank you very much.